All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me this morning. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So I don't have any questions yet, so go ahead and post your questions. Let me refresh my page here and make sure that there's not any questions there yet. I got to put in my password. All right, yeah, so don't have any questions in there yet, so go ahead and post your questions, and we'll go ahead and get started answering those. On the right-hand side, you'll see there's a little place where it says Chat with TSV Golf Instructors. You can post your questions right there. If you're on a mobile device, it might be below the video, so just look below the video there. But yeah, questions about Top Speed Golf System, questions about 20-minute distance fix, the move, unlimited swing reviews, clinics, ball striking masterclass. Those are all really, really great topics I get questions about all the time. And these are things that are really, really going to help you out the most and get the most out of the website. So any questions about, in golf in general is good as well. Just those are kind of the main topics if you have any questions about those. So go ahead and get your questions posted on there. In the meantime, I got to refill my drink here. All right, so looks like we got a question. Let me refill my drink here real quick. There we go. All right, so Joseph C. says, I was golfing with Top Pernice, I think he means Top Pernice, at Pro-Am this weekend, and he said that I need to start my downswing with my arms, not what I thought. Your thoughts? Well, I mean, it's hard to say without seeing your swing. Tom may have been telling you something based on what he's seeing in your swing, but for the most part, he said, watch Justin Rose pre-shot, for example. Yeah, so that's not what Justin Rose is doing in his pre-shot routine. Justin Rose is really working on using his lower body to start the downswing. So in technicalities, what starts the downswing is the change of the direction of the club. So the arms are starting the downswing. That's technically when that starts. But to get to that point, you've got to shift your weight. There's got to be a sequence that happens first. So ideally, that sequence would be, a good weight shift to your lead side. Because if you tell someone to start the swing with their arms, typically what they're going to do is they're going to go up to the top and they're just going to go like that, right? And they're not going to get a good weight shift. They're not going to open up their body. They're not going to do any of those things. It talks about keeping his left arm in. So I'll get into that. So basically, that's typically what's going to happen. A lot of this is based on feel as well, what you feel, and what Justin Rose feels, and what Tom Pernice feels, and all those sorts of things. What they feel is going to be different from what you feel. Those guys, they're tour players. They typically have proper sequencing, or almost always have proper sequencing. Some of them have a better sequencing than others. Justin Rose is somebody who is more he's always kind of swung a little bit more with his upper body, and he's actually trying to use more of his lower body. So if you watch his swing routine, you're going to see it's going to be like this. He's doing this in his pre-shot routine. So just to show you from this angle, you're going to see Justin Rose doing a lot of this action. That's basically what he's doing there. And if you see what I'm doing, I'm not really using my arms much. It's my legs that are bringing my arms down. If you look at my arms in relationship to my body, what he's doing, he's not moving his arms at all. It's his hips that he's moving out of the way, and that's what he's trying to work on. So everyone's going to have different feels and things like that. If you look at your swing and you're releasing the club early, feeling the swing starting with the arms is probably not going to be a good swing thought for you, because most likely what's going to happen is you're just going to release that club even earlier because you're not getting a proper weight shift. You're not using your legs properly in the swing to swing the club more efficiently. So, like I said, it's hard to say without seeing your swing. Sometimes, a tour player, it's hard to say. Tom said, I'm using way too much upper body. See, now none of this is really making sense because he's telling you to swing with your arms, and then he's saying you're using too much upper body. So, start your swing with your arms. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense if he tells you you're swinging too much upper body. Um, so odds are you're probably releasing the club early. It sounds like. I don't believe that the feeling of starting the swing with your arms is going to help with that. I think it's actually going to hurt with that. Just in students that I've worked with, and myself, I struggle with this as well. Going over the top with shoulders. Yeah. So I don't see how starting the downswing with the arms is going to help you with that. I feel like it's just going to make it worse. So what I'd recommend doing is making sure your spine angles are good, because that's a big reason why you see people come over the top, is because they are leaning toward the target at the top. So make sure that you're nice and angled away at the top of the swing. Because if you're not, if you're in this kind of position where you're going at the top and you're like this, you're angled toward the target, then what typically happens is you'll do that. So if you look from this angle, I'm leaning toward the target, I'm going to want to do that. Whereas if I'm getting to where I'm nice and angled away from the target, now I have this space to allow this club to work from the inside and allow that shoulder to move down in the downswing. So make sure that your spine angle is good. If you're coming over the top, I'd also recommend our Never Slice Again course. That course is going to help you to get that club's working from the inside, if that's the case of what's going on. So take a look at that. Stable fluid spine, make sure look at that on camera. And to get to these courses is very, very easy. Click the house icon at the top of the page. That's going to take you to the home page. Once you get there, if you scroll down on that home page, you'll see Toss Speed Golf System course progress. You'll see all the courses there. So if you scroll down, you'll see the stable fluid spine. You'll be able to see I want to be angled away at address, angled away at the top, and then more angled away as you're coming into contact. And then that Never Slice Again course. I'm not sure if you're slicing or pulling or anything like that, but if you're coming over the top, a lot of those drills in there are going to be really, really helpful to help with that. My favorite one is it's a third video in there. It's a 1.3, pulling. So that's a product of coming over the top. Basically, a pull and a slice are very, very similar. They're a product of the same issue, which is your club path, kind of coming over the top and your club path kind of going in that direction. The only difference is when you're pulling, your face is lined up with your path. So if your face is lined up with your path, it's going to go straight in that direction. In your case, your path is to the left, right? Assuming you're right-handed, then you're going to end up with those pulls. The only difference with a slice is that your face is open to the path. So instead of having the face square with the path, the face is open with the path. The ball starts straight or to the right and curves even more to the right. So that's really the only difference there. So Joseph, take a look at those things on camera and see if those help. And if you want help with your swing, we do offer unlimited swing reviews. I don't have any spots available right now. We'll be opening up spots soon, but join that waiting list so that way you get notified first and foremost whenever spots become available, and then you'll get notified along with the rest of the people on the waiting list, and it's first come, first serve from there. All right. So Barbara M says, with winter coming and only playing in a simulator, what is the best way to use a 1/2 hour of my time? What I would recommend doing if you're on a simulator is working on ball flights. So that's what I'd recommend doing when you go into a simulator, is just to work on ball flights. So hitting draws and fades, high and low, strike location, hitting it more in the center of the face, working on your ground contact, making sure that you're getting that ball first contact. That's why I'd recommend when you're working on it in there. When you can do like the technique stuff, like the Toss Speed Golf System and things like that, you don't need to go to a simulator to do those things. Work on those things at home, because that's like a lot of repetition, a lot of repetitions without the golf ball. So work on that stuff at home, getting in the positions and things like that. And then when you go to the simulator and you go to hit golf balls, work on ball flights, hitting draws and fades, and hitting the ball solid in general. That's what I'd recommend. Either that or play simulated golf. That's always fun. Play simulated golf as far as, on a course, play, it's a great opportunity to play courses that, usually they have like Pebble Beach and Bethpage Black and things like that, courses that you would have a hard time being able to play. Otherwise, that's a good time to be able to play those. So that's what I'd recommend doing. And that's going to help you to translate more of what you're doing in there to the actual golf course when the season comes back around. All right. So John Z says, does Matsuyama really start down before finishing his backswing? Does he start down before finishing his backswing? I'd say no. So basically, it's kind of an oxymoron kind of statement because you can't do that. It's not really possible. The downswing starts when the club switches directions. The backswing ends when the club switches directions. So you can't start the downswing and still be having the backswing happening at the same time. Those are two separate things that can't happen at the same time. So I'm not really sure exactly what you're trying to say. Does he start down? Are you saying that is he getting a weight shift and things like that before he started the downswing? And if that's the case, yes, he is. If you look at, he's getting up to the top of the swing, and you're going to see he's going to actually start shifting forward a little bit. He pauses, and then he comes down like that. So the sequence is definitely happening in the last part of the backswing, and then that allows him to come down the downswing. I don't recommend swinging like that. I mean, if it works for you, that's great. But he could be losing a little bit of distance. And it's kind of a thing where probably in his case, he's been doing it for so long, and that's just how he's probably always done that it's not worth trying to work on that to get an extra couple yards, because it's probably going to hurt his game initially more than anything. So, in his situation, probably wouldn't, but I wouldn't recommend starting to do, having a normal kind of tempo in your swing and then starting to do what he's doing, because it can cause you to lose a little bit of distance. And a lot of times it's hard to sequence properly when you do that as well, because you will tend to want to come over the top and swing with a lot of upper body and not get that proper weight shift and sequencing correct. When you do that, it's a little bit more difficult to do. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I would, having a very, very slight pause at the top, is completely fine, but I wouldn't recommend pausing for as long as he does. It's to start doing that because it can lead to some issues and things of that nature. All right, so Dennis H says, following the lower body movement to start the downswing, does the left shoulder go down or the right shoulder? So following the lower body movement to start the downswing, does the left shoulder go down or the right shoulder? So in the start of the downswing, your left shoulder is going to be going down as well as your right shoulder. So your left shoulder is kind of going down initially, and then it starts going up, and then your right shoulder is going down as well. So initially, your lead shoulder will go down a little bit and then start coming up as you're coming down to here, and then it's going to start going up. And then your trail shoulder from the very beginning is going down, is moving down in that direction. So hopefully that helps. I wouldn't overcomplicate that really too much. The easiest way to kind of think about it is to think about your shoulders kind of being on a plane of glass. So if I'm like this, I have a plane of glass going through my neck all the way down to the golf ball. It's something from the Hogan's 5 Lessons book where he talks about how his shoulders are on a plane of glass. That's kind of the feeling that you want to have. Now, in reality, it's not that steep, but it's a good feeling to have when you're working on trying to stay in your posture and things like that. So Joseph C says, can I send a video and get your feedback? So we do offer unlimited swing reviews, Joseph. So how do I join your waiting list? So here's how you can join the waiting list. If you go to the top of the page there where it says learn more, you can click on that, and that's going to take you to the unlimited swing review page. If you scroll down on that page, well, first of all, you can go through that page and kind of see what swing reviews are all about, see what's going on there, see if it's the right fit for you, so on and so forth. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see where you'll be able to sign up for an instructor. Now, I don't believe there are spots available. In fact, let me double check that real quick. I'm pretty sure I don't have spots available right now. But we are getting ready to open some spots, so be on the lookout in your email. But let me check this real quick. So yeah, the other way you can get to it is to click the get a review. Yeah, so I don't have any spots available right now. So join that waiting list so that so if you scroll down there all the way toward the bottom, you'll see the click to join Quentin's waiting list. If you click on that, that'll put you on the waiting list, and then you'll be notified first when, along with other people that are on the waiting list. Basically, when you join the waiting list, you join a group of people that are on the waiting list, and those people are going to be notified first when my spots become available. So it's still going to be first come, first serve. It's not saving a spot for you. It's still first come, first serve at that point, but you're getting notified first in a small group of people versus all of the members of the website being notified. So I'd recommend that for sure. But yeah, that's how you can join that. You can always get to that page by clicking get a review at the top of the page. So if you go to the very top of the page, you'll see the get a review. If you click on that, that'll take you there as well. All right. So Frank B says, can you demonstrate shallowing the club in the downswing? Absolutely. So let me get the video on me so I can see what I'm doing. All right. So basically, the easiest way to kind of understand this is, actually, I'll do it with the club first, and then I'll show you the drill that's really, really good for this. So the easiest way to understand this is basically when you're in the downswing, shallowing of the club means this. This means shallowing of the club. So that means the shaft gets flatter. And when you're looking from this down the line view, the shaft gets on a flatter plane. That's shallowing. This would be steep. This would be shallowing. So that's what that means. If you look at every tour player, basically they get to the top, and then the start of the downswing, the club kind of goes like this. If you look at a lot of amateur players, the club goes up to the top, and the shaft kind of goes like that. It gets steep. And when it gets steep, you have to make compensations to get that club to be back on plane. Because when you're in this position, basically your options are to either continue kind of straight down into the turf there and hit way behind the golf ball, or to kind of come over the top and do a combination. You may make clean contact when you do that, but then you're cutting across the ball and things like that. You may even chunk it when you do that. The other option, this is probably the most common option that I see people do, and people who are good players who are coming down steep, is they'll actually stand up. So when you stand up, your hands raise and the club head drops. Now the club shallows out late. That allows the club to shallow out late. And when you stand up and the club shallows out late, you do this action. So you don't stay in your posture. You stand up, you flip the club to get the club to the golf ball, and you add loft and things like that. So it takes some power out of it, but it allows you to hit a straight shot. So shallowing of the club is where you get the club kind of in this position. Now this club is on plane. I don't need to do anything to get this club to be on plane. Now all I have to do is turn that handle down to square up that club face, and now I can rotate into contact with forward shaft lean. So if you look at from this view, I got this club shallowed out, and I've rotated this handle down, and now I'm able to rotate into contact. You see here, I'm rotating into contact. Now I have forward shaft lean and a square club face. So that's what shallowing out the club is. If you go, there's lots of videos on the website for this. But my favorite drill for, and this is what the move is, shallowing of the club and squaring of the club face earlier. That's what the move is. My favorite drill for this, and one of the most effective drills I think there is on the website as far as shallowing out the club, squaring the club face, forward shaft lean, and things of that nature. And this is a lot of the feedback that we've gotten from students have told us this as well, is this tennis racket drill. So if you don't have a tennis racket, you can pick one up at Walmart or Target or something like that. I think this was like $14, $15. I actually do play a little bit of tennis, but so this is like one of my older tennis rackets that I got from Walmart when I first started playing. I have a little nicer racket now, but and you can use this, and this is a really, really great visual for you to be able to see exactly what you're trying to do. So when we have this club out in space, the reason why this is effective is because when we look down at the ground at the club, we can clearly see here's the leading edge. We see where the club face is pointing. But when we get that out into space, it's really, really hard to kind of be able to tell those things. So when we have this tennis racket, it really makes that a lot easier. Now, if I set up an address, here's my club face basically, and I got the strings pointed right at my target. Now I go up to the top, And to shallow out the club, I try to get the strings to point up to the sky. So that's the feeling of turning the doorknob to the right. So it's almost like if you're taking a doorknob and you're turning it to the right. So I can actually kind of show you. I have a doorknob over here I can show you. There we go. So it's like, you're turning the doorknob to the right. That's the feeling that you're having. You're turning the doorknob to the right whenever you are shallowing out the club. So that's with both hands. And that's if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, it's going to be the other way. But if you're right-handed, you're turning the doorknob to the right, and then you're squaring of the club face. So I'm getting turning the doorknob to the right to get the strings to point up to the sky. And now I'm turning the handle down. If you look from this angle, I'm turning that handle down to square up the club face. And now from this position here, I'm shallowed out. I've got this handle turned down. This is exaggerations, by the way. These are not actually necessarily what's happening in the swing, technically, but this is more of kind of a subtlety, an exaggeration of a subtlety that's happening in the swing that's allowing you to get forward shaft lean and compression on the ball. So now from this position, now I can feel like I can really just rotate into contact, and I can have forward shaft lean. So here I am, turn that handle down. So shallowed out, turn the handle down. Now I can just rotate into contact. You can see this is really, really exaggerated. I have tons of forward shaft lean and things like that. But if you want to exaggerate things when you're doing drills to help you feel, exactly what you're trying to do a lot better. So I highly recommend this tennis racket drill. And the reason why you want to turn the handle down is if you look at, here, I'll use the tennis racket actually to do this. So if I have no forward shaft lean, so I'm coming into contact, I have no forward shaft lean, chest straight up and down. I'm in this kind of position at contact. So my lead wrist is pretty flat. You can see my lead wrist is pretty flat. I'm pushing that club through. It's pretty flat. And my trail wrist is kind of cupped. It's breaking down as I'm coming through. You might even see some chicken wing action as you're coming through. So if I'm in this kind of position and my wrists are in this kind of position, if I get forward shaft lean from here, look what happens to that club face. If I don't change the wrist angles, look what happens to that club face. It's wide open. Now I have forward shaft lean, but my club face, my strings are pointed way out there. So in order to have this forward shaft lean and square up that club face, I have to turn that handle down. So now you can see my trail wrist went like that. It's in a bent back position. My lead wrist went from cupped to like that, a bowed position. So now you can see I have forward shaft lean. That's why you have to turn that handle down. That's what squares up the club face when you have forward shaft lean. So that's the drill that I'd recommend working on. This is all from the Move course. Now, the Move is kind of an advanced course. So it's not something, you see it's an old tennis racket. It's not something I would necessarily recommend unless you've gone through the Top Speed Golf system. So your stable fluid spine looks good. Your power turn looks good. Your lag looks good. Unless all of those things look good, your compression line and so on and so forth, unless all those things look good, I wouldn't recommend going and working on the Move just yet. Make sure that those pieces are good first. Those are going to be a lot easier, and they're also going to help your game just as much, if not more. The Move course is more an advanced course. There's a reason why it's not a part of the Top Speed Golf system. It's a very, very difficult course to do. So make sure that you've nailed all the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system, and make sure you've also gone through the 20-minute distance fix course as well. Get that distance. That's one of the easiest way to add yards to your game. And then from there, then I would work on the Move course and making sure that that's in good shape there. So that's what my recommendation is. So that's what shallowing out the club is. Hopefully that helps, Frank. If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to ask. All right. So Richard S says, can you angle the way? I've been zooming in on this so I can see a little bit better. Oops. There we go. All right. So can you angle away from the target too far, trying to get the hands more forward in order to get more shaft lean, causing chunks and thin shots? Yes, you can get too far angled away. That's why we have a suggested range. So if you get to where you're kind of, you're coming in you're 25, 40 degrees angled away, that's too much. It's going to be hard to get a weight shift. You're going to end up hanging back on your trail side. and you could even end up swinging too much from the inside when you do that. All those things can happen. So yeah, you can get too much angled away. So in general, what we like to see is at address, 6 to 8 degrees angled away. So if you draw that line centered in the center of your chest here, right in your sternum, all the way down through your belt buckle, center of the hips, that's going to be about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. That's going to look something like that. That's ideally where you would be at address. Now you can be a little bit more vertical or a little bit more angled away, whatever works best for you. The angle, the address position isn't super important. It's probably the least important of the spine angles, but it can set you up for success. If you're set up vertically, then you're just going to have to move more to get in that angled away position. So that's why we tell you to be in a more angled away position at address, because it makes it easier to get into this stable angled away position at the top. So at the top of the swing, we want to see this overall angle of the torso. So we're getting up at the top here, this overall angle of the torso. We like to see that to be about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. If it's a little bit more than that, you're kind of in this area, you're probably going to swing way too much from the inside. You're probably going to have trouble getting that club to swing more on plane. If you're angled toward the target, you're typically going to fall away in the downswing. You're going to come over the top and things like that. So we want us to be nice and stable in that 6 to 8 degrees angled away position at the top of the swing. The most important angle is that angle as you're coming into impact. And we like to see that about 18 to 25 degrees angled away. So if we're coming into contact here, we're coming in like that. We like to see this angle right here. So center of the shoulders to the belt buckle, we like to see that to be about 18 to 25 degrees angled away. If you're not in that position, if you're coming in and your hips are square, so you're coming in and you're kind of bumping your hips like this and your hips are kind of square, it's going to be really, really difficult to get in that position. If you watch, if I'm in this same position, but now I rotate my body open, look at how much more angled away I get because I'm looking at my belt buckle here. I get a lot more angled away, even though technically my body's not any more angled away. I just have my hips opened up to the ball. So now it looks like I'm more angled away. That's really, really important to get this club to release out in front. If you're too much, if you come in, you're too far angled away, and then you get like this and you're too far angled away, that's going to lead to chunking and topping. So yeah, you may want to work through more reps with that stable fluid spine course, making sure that you're in those angles. Like I said, setting up 6 to 8 degrees angled away initially is going to help you to get into that position on the top, and that's going to help you to get in the more angled away position at contact. So I recommend working through the drills, get it ingrained, get the reps in so that it's ingrained, and so on and so forth, so that you can start hitting some more consistent shots. All right, so Michael I says, when putting, do you look at the back of the ball, top of the ball, or a spot ahead of the ball? I look at the back of the ball typically when I'm putting. Oops. Whatever works the best for you. I would just try to fixate on one spot. But typically the back of the ball works the best. But to each their own on that. If you hit it a little bit better looking at the center of the ball, if you hit it a little bit better looking at a spot that's 2 inches behind the ball, whatever works best for you. I would try to fixate on one spot though, and not move your eyes around everywhere. The more your eyes are moving around, the harder it is, going to be consistent. There's something that's called quiet eye. They actually tested a lot of tour players versus, amateur players and poor players and things like that, and found that, tour players, better players, have quieter eyes. So basically throughout the swing, their eyes aren't darting around everywhere. They're kind of fixated on a point. Whereas poor players, their eyes are kind of moving around everywhere. I see this all the time where I see someone send me a video in a swing review and I'll watch them do this in the backswing. So they'll watch the club go back because they're worried about their takeaway. And there's actually a funny saying from, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Harvey Penick, but he has this book, or it's called The Little Red Book, where he talks about, basically he had a book where he's a famous instructor where he wrote down a bunch of like things that were truths that he found about golf. And one of them that I thought was kind of funny, he says, nothing is worse, or nothing can happen at impact that's worse than watching the club go back. right? So basically, if you watch that club go back, you're setting yourself up for disaster. So I do not recommend doing that for the most part. But yeah, try to focus on that one spot, the part of the ball that you're trying to hit. That's what I think is the easiest thing to think about, is to focus on the part of the ball that you're trying to hit. So almost every instance, that's going to be the very back portion of the ball. Now, when you're actually hitting golf shots, you're trying to shape the ball, you might be thinking about the outside part of the ball or inside part of the ball if you're trying to hit draws and fades and so on and so forth. That's another discussion. But basically, if you always focus on the part of the ball that you're trying to hit, then that typically is the best. But think about other ones. Think about what think about other situations where maybe thinking about hitting it 2 inches behind the ball or 2 inches ahead of the ball. Try them out, see what works best for you. But in general, the very back of the ball is going to be a good place to focus. All right. So Kava L says, now that you're talking about simulator, how can I perform low, medium, and high shots? The easiest way to kind of think about that is more about your angle of attack. So the easiest way to kind of be able to control that is with your compression line. So the compression line is a piece of the Top Speed Golf system. It's where we talk about at contact, a line that goes up from your ankle to your hip to your shoulder. So at contact, we want those to be all in a straight line. And ideally, that would be for your normal trajectory shot, slightly angled away from the target. So we're talking like 2-3 degrees angled away from the target. So that would look something like that. So if I was trying to hit a lower shot, meaning trying to, one, get more forward shaft lean, and two, maybe hit a little bit more down on the golf ball, that would be a compression line that would maybe look something like this, a little bit more vertical or even angled toward the target just a little bit. That would help me to hit a lower kind of shot. It also helped me get more forward shaft lean. Also getting more forward shaft lean by virtue of turning the handle down, opening up the body more. Those are all things that you can do to help get that ball to drive down lower. Now, to get the ball higher, you can get a little bit more angled away. So you're getting that good weight shift. Now you're getting a little bit more angled away. You're getting this club to release a little bit earlier because it's adding loft. You're going to be a little bit more angled away. So instead of coming in 2 to 3 degrees angled away, you might come in 4 or 5 degrees angled away. And that's going to help you to hoist the ball up in the air. So those are all things that I would work on to play that high-low game. There's actually a great video on the website. Just search the words high-low. I believe there's a video where Clay talks about play the high-low game, where you can work on that as well. Highly recommend that video. If you go to there's a search window in the top right corner if you're on your desktop. If you're on a mobile device, you may have to click on the navigation and then scroll down all the way through. So the navigation would be there's like I think it's either 3 vertical lines or 3 horizontal lines that you click on. That expands the menu, and if you scroll below all the way to the bottom of that menu, you'll see the search window. If you search high-low there, you'll find the video that I'm talking about. Or if you're on a desktop, where you can see the search window on the upper right-hand corner, click on that, search the words high-low, and you'll find that video that I'm talking about. But typically, the easiest way to do it is with adjusting your compression line. So feeling like you're more angled toward the target to get that lower strike, and more angled away from the target to get that higher strike. All right. So Joseph C says, are these sessions recorded and posted somewhere? Yes, you can find the so we do office hours highlights. So every week I pick the best questions from the week, and we put them in the highlights. So there's that office hours highlights page, and then below the highlights, you'll see all of the archived office hours. So every day, if I remember, I go in and I archive the previous office hours. Now, you may find some days that aren't in there. Last week, I was sick for 2 days last week, so there aren't 2 of them in there. But the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday one is in there. The Monday, Tuesday one is not in there. So, but yeah, that's basically what's going on there. If you want to find that, if you go to the top of the screen, you'll see office hours. If you hover your mouse over that, expand that menu, you'll see it'll have the office hours highlights. Click on that. If you click on that and then scroll below the highlights, you'll see a little video window there. That's the playlist of all the archived office hours if you want to check them out. And I try to get it on there within a half hour after we're done. So once we get done with the office hours today, I'll set up the one for tomorrow, and then I go in and set up the one, or I go in and archive the one from today. So usually I do that within a half hour, depending on if I have something I have to do right after. But typically within a half hour, I have that next one on there. So check it out later on this afternoon. All right. So James M says, can you demonstrate the squat when you start the downswing? I seem to squat too low. So basically that squat, a lot of times it's happening in the backswing as well as you're loading up. Typically what you're going to see with tour players is they get about 5 or 6 inches lower than they were at the top of the swing. You're not going to see any tour players get taller in the backswing. You're going to see almost every single one of them getting lower in the backswing and then lower in the start of the downswing. So what that would look like if you were to, and I would recommend you go to an app like V1 Golf and take a look for yourself. You can draw lines on there. You can download. They have models that you can look at on there of tour players. So I would check that out. But basically, what you're going to see with your average tour player is as they go up to the top of the swing, you're going to see they're getting lower. So it's pretty subtle. It's not like they go up to the top of the swing and they go like that. They're going up to the top of the swing and they're getting typically 1 to 3 inches lower as they're going up to the top, and it's pretty subtle. It's as they're loading up, they're getting some bend in their knees, they're getting loaded up, and they're getting lower in the backswing. And then the downswing, you'll see again, they're going to get 2 or 3 inches lower again. So it's going to look something like that, 2 or 3 inches lower, and then they get to where their hands are just past waist level, and that's typically when that lowering stops. And then they pretty much stay level. They stay in that same spot all the way to contact. Now you're going to see some tour players will stand up just a little bit as they're coming into contact and then release the club. That's completely fine because they're still really low as they're coming in. But the best way to think about this is to think about, and the way that I've worked with it, and it's helped me the most, is to think from the very start of the swing that I need to get my hands lower in the downswing. Like I feel like I need to hit the ball off the heel of the club, or hit the ground with the heel of my club. If you think of that from the very start of the swing, you can start squatting a little bit as you go up to the top and then squat as you're coming down into contact. If you go up to the top and if you do something, I see this all the time where people, all they'll do is think about, okay, I want to get super high hands in the backswing. I want to get as tall as I possibly can. So what they do is they go up to the top, they stand up, and now from here, in order to get to that much lower position, I have to go like that. And that's not really plausible. That's not going to be something that's going to work out very well. So typically, if you get to where you're kind of lowering in the backswing a little bit and you're getting into this kind of position, and in the downswing, you lower a little bit more, that's typically the best way to go. So that's what I'd recommend doing. If you think from the very beginning that you want to hit the ground with the heel of your club first, meaning I've got to get my hands really, really low from the very beginning. If you're thinking about that in the backswing, that'll help you to get lower in the backswing and then lower in the downswing. I think it's too difficult to get to where you're pretty much staying level, or you're standing up a little bit, especially if you're standing up, and then think that you're going to be able to squat down enough in the downswing to be consistent and to be able to get to where you want to be. It's just too difficult. So what I'd recommend doing is trying to feel like as you're loading up, you're also kind of squatting and getting into your legs, using your legs to rotate your body and loading up. If you do that, it makes it a lot easier. So that's what I would recommend doing for sure. All right. So go ahead and I'll be on here for another 20 minutes. So if you have any questions, any further questions, be sure to let me know. I see I got another question here from Cindy. But after that, there are no questions posted on here. So go ahead and post your questions. I'll be happy to help. So Cindy K says, is there a disadvantage to setting the club on the proper plane at the start of the backswing and hold that angle to the top of the backswing, as opposed to taking the backswing straight up and shallowing the club before starting the downswing? So that's a good question. The disadvantage would be, so there's pros and cons to it, right? So the disadvantage would be being able to create more space to be able to accelerate the club. So you're talking about basically a single plane approach, where I would bring this club back on the same plane as I would bring it down. So if you watch, if I do that, if I bring that club up on that same plane, and I'm going to have a pretty flat swing. I'm not going to be able to have as much space and time to accelerate this club. So it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for me to generate speed. The more space and time you have to accelerate the club, the more club head speed that I can generate, and that's going to allow me to hit the ball further. But it's arguable that you are going to be more consistent if you do that. If you are staying kind of staying on plane throughout the swing. Now, you may be able to hit the ball more consistently, meaning maybe you'll hit the ball with a little bit more solid more often, or you'll hit the ball on plane and so on and so forth a little bit better and more often. That's arguable that you can do that. But what I would recommend doing is finding that happy medium that allows you to get distance, getting the hands up higher, and that also allows you to shallow out the club, because distance is a big part of consistency as well. If you look at the best players in the world, so you're looking Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Tiger Woods. These are, the best players in the world. If you look at these guys, they're not short hitters. They're not short knockers. They get the ball out there. These are 120 plus swing speed guys on average. So they're in the tops, whatever 10 in driving, typically driving distance on tour, or have been, or pretty close to if they're not right at it. So that's really, really important for playing consistent. So basically what it comes down to is I'm not saying that you're going to hit your 6-iron more consistent. I'm saying that you're going to hit, instead of hitting your 6-iron, you're going to hit like your 9-iron, and you're going to hit your 9-iron more consistent than your 6-iron. So distance is a big part of consistency that I think people don't realize. I think when people think of consistency, they're just thinking about hitting it solid and straight. That's all that they're thinking about in consistency, but that's really not, when you think about as far as the golf game is concerned, the whole scope of it, distance is a huge part of consistency, because it allows you to hit shorter clubs that you hit more consistent, which overall makes you more consistent. So I get people all the time that, they swing, that they'll swing below average with their club head speed. And I'll look at their swing and I'll see, I actually have a student right now who just signed up for me a little while ago, and he sent me some swings, and he's swinging 92 miles per hour, which is below average for a male golfer. And he's telling me, I was like, I'm good with my distance. I don't need more distance. I'm good with that. It's like, I just want to hit the ball straight and solid. Well, that may, he's already probably hitting the ball pretty straight and solid. It's more about just, instead of hitting his hybrid into par 4s, hit your 8-iron instead, right? You're going to hit that more straight and solid than you are your hybrid. Just those longer clubs are just harder to hit. If you drop 100 balls from your hybrid range and hit 100 hybrids into the green, and then took the average proximity to the hole on those, versus you drop 100 balls at your 8-iron length and hit all those shots, those 8-irons are probably going to be leaps and bounds a lot closer than your hybrid. So that's what I'm saying. Now, if you're someone who's in a situation where you are hitting huge slices, you can't even make contact with the golf ball, huge slices, huge hooks, chunking every single shot. Okay, in that situation, you need to work on just making some better strikes on the ball. But if you're not in that situation, I recommend getting distance. That's going to be huge. That's one of the number one correlations to lowering your scores, and the tour proves it. The guys who are hitting it longer are doing way better than the guys who are hitting shorter. It's just it revitalized Francesco Molinari's career. His whole career, Francesco Molinari was a short hitter, did not hit it very far, and he was one of the best ball strikers on tour, meaning he hit the ball more consistently than about anybody on tour. But he wasn't hardly winning any tournaments. He was not in contention in majors hardly ever. And, he was really, he's barely doing okay on the European tour. But, here he in the PGA tour, he just wasn't really doing real great. He decided he needed to get more distance. He had 20 yards to his drives. And now all of a sudden, he's competing in majors and won a major and competed in a lot more. It was in contention in a lot of other majors as well around that. So it completely revitalized his career just from adding distance. So lifting that lead heel off the ground, he did a lot of things that people say you should not do, and it helped him to win a major tournament. So it's really, really important. So I kind of got off on a tangent there, but basically the moral of the story here is you got to find your happy medium of consistency versus distance. And I recommend swinging out a little bit more of a vertical plane and being able to shallow out that club, because if you bring the club back too flat and you stay on that plane, it's just going to be harder for you to create enough speed to be able to be consistent. So you're going to be kind of canceling that out. You may as well hit the ball further and then learn to shallow out the club a little bit so you can have the consistency of ball striking that would go along with that as well. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them on there. I'll be happy to answer any more that you got. I'll be on here for another 14 minutes. In the meantime, yeah, shoot over a text real quick. All right. So let's go ahead and so Joseph C says, I can hit a short iron. Oops. I can hit a short iron shot that stops very fast with right hand only. I put the other hand on, and it's a big problem. Thoughts? Why? So again, it'd be hard to see, hard to know without seeing your swing. But when you take one arm swings, a lot of times what happens is it forces you to use your lower body more because you don't have as much stability because you're not using both hands. So if I were to just use both hands, no body, I could probably hit some pretty good shots. I could probably just go like that and still hit some fine shots. Now, I may not be very consistent because I'm probably going to hit a lot, thin every now and then, chunk every now and then, because I'll basically have to flip the club when I do that. But when you do it with one arm and you do that, you're going to be way, way less consistent. And it's going to be really hard because you don't have the stability of the other arm. So in order to be more consistent when you do that, when you're taking one arm swings, you've got to really open up your body. And when you do that, when you open up your body, you can be and use the momentum of the club, you can hit the ball a lot more solid to make that happen. So like I said, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but typically with the one arm swings, it forces you to use your lower body a little bit more, which allows you to be more consistent. So that's what I imagine is going on there. So what I would recommend doing is when you're doing those one arm swings, take note of what your body is doing. So take note of what's going on here with your body, and then add your other hand to the club and try to replicate that same kind of motion with your body that you were doing with the one arm swing. So that's why I'd recommend check that out and see what's going on there. So Richard G says, advice for hitting a rescue club. Just bought one. So you hit it just like your iron. I play the ball, in basically straight down from your lead ear. You can go maybe a hair ahead of that. Or you can play the ball straight down from your lead ear. That's going to be a little bit ahead of the middle of your stance. Like I said, you can play the ball a little bit ahead of that, but for the most part, you be hitting it just like you would your 7-iron or 5-iron. You hit it the exact same way. You want to get that ball first contact. Playing it a little bit further up in your stance can help you get it up in the air a little bit more. You'll take a little bit shallower of a divot. But yeah, if you're trying to hit it lower, you may want to play it just a little bit further back in your stance, hit a little bit more down on it. But yeah, it's just like hitting an iron. That's how I would approach it. So vertical is, or Richard H said, sorry. Richard A says, how vertical is vesicle in the backswing, and how much do you shallow the club? How vertical is vesicle? I'm not sure what you're asking. Richard, if you wouldn't mind rewording that, I'll be happy to answer your question. I just want to make sure I'm answering exactly what you're asking. I'm not sure what you're asking. So Richard S. Says, you said 92 miles per hour is less than average for a male golfer. What does a normal club head say of a mid-single digit handicapper? So a mid-single digit handicapper is going to probably be about over 100. It's probably going to be in the 100, 105 range. So the average male golfer, so this is all male golfers, average is about 94, 95 miles per hour. Now with age, that will be a little bit lower. If you're in your 60s, you're looking at probably the average being about 87. If you're in your 50s, you're looking at the average being 93, 94 probably. In your 40s, you're looking at that 95, 96, and so on and so forth. So basically what it comes down to is, what I recommend doing is going through that 20-minute distance fix and just trying to get as fast as you can go. There are things within reason, but a lot of times you're playing with people that are about the same age as you or close to. You can kind of compare yourselves to them as well. But typically, your average male golfer is going to be about 94, 95 miles per hour. So the best players in the world that are in their 60s are about 102. They're in their 50s. They're about, I think it's like 105, something like that for the best players in the world. And that doesn't mean that you should just try to get there and stop. Try to get as much as you can. Go through that 20-minute distance fix. I can't tell you how many people that come to our clinics, go through the 20-minute distance fix. They're up there in age, or they start out really low. They're in their 80s, low 90s, and they're getting up over 100 miles per hour easily. Go through that 20-minute distance fix. So I highly recommend doing that. Check that out. To get to the course, super easy. If you go to the top of the page, if you go to the instruction tab, you expand that, hover your mouse over that, it'll expand that, and you'll see the 20-minute distance fix right there. And if you go to the home page and by clicking on the house icon, if you go down to the bottom there, you'll see the Top Speed Golf System course progress, and you'll see the 20-minute distance fix toward the top of that list. Work on that. That's what I highly recommend. Don't settle for your club head. Even if you're someone who's in the upper echelon, let's say that you're 65 years old and you're swinging 103 miles per hour. Even if you're doing that, try to get 110, 113. It's only going to help you to play better golf. So highly recommend, no matter where you're at with your club head speed, to try and get some more. It's definitely not going to hurt you at all. So Richard A says should be vertical in both words. In other words, straight up or laid off some. So like I mentioned, you got to find that happy medium for you. So there's going to be some players like Bubba Watson, for example, who's way up here. Like Bubba Watson, his arm is almost straight up and down. This is like super vertical. This is probably as vertical as you can possibly be. And there's an advantage to that. He's got way more space and time to accelerate the club. Bubba Watson, he's a string bean. He is not like a big buff guy. He's fairly tall, but he's pretty much a string bean. There's not much to him, but he creates all that space and time to accelerate the club and to create club head speed. That's why he's been one of the longest hitters on tour every single year for like 12 years or he's probably been on the tour for 14 years or something like that. He's been on the tour a long time, and part of that is because he's able to hit the ball a long, long way. So that verticality is allowing him to be able to do that. And then there's golfers like Matt Kuchar, who comes in and he's pretty much like this. He's very, very flat with his swing. Now, Matt Kuchar is a great ball striker, a great putter, and he's a fairly lanky guy, so he can kind of get away with it. It's what works the best for him. One thing that he has fought a lot in his career is a hook. When you bring the ball back or bring the club back flatter like this, that could be something that you fight because you'll typically want to shallow it out a little bit from there and swing too much from the inside, and you'll get those hooks. So you got to find the happy medium that works best for you. You got to find what, if you can get more vertical and you're able to shallow it out from there and get a lot of speed and distance and hit the ball well from there, then that's what you should do. That's like what Bubba Watson does. If you're someone who's like Adam Scott, who's basically right in between there, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, basically where most players are somewhere in between there, then that's where you should be. So you just kind of got to find that happy medium that works best for you. But just know that if you go more vertical, there's just more. You have to shallow it more, and if you go flatter, you're just going to be losing distance if you do that. So find that happy medium that works best for you. There's pros and cons to both. All right, so Bud N says very tight target area with trouble on both sides, choke down on driver, or use lofted club. Thoughts? It really just depends on how long the hole is. It also depends on how well you're hitting the ball. There's lots of things that depend. If there's trouble on both sides, if it's equal trouble, meaning it's out of bounds on both sides or it's water on both sides. If one side is out of bounds and one side is brush, then I would kind of aim a little bit more toward the brush side, because the brush side, you'll probably be able to find your ball, or it may be stroke in you'll be able to maybe a lateral hazard, and you'll be able to drop your ball up there. If it's a out of bounds and it's stroke in distance, you're losing both of those. So it's a little bit more of, that's basically another stroke penalty that's added in there. It really just depends on how well you're hitting the ball. If you're hitting the ball great that day and you're just striping it down the fairway, then just hit your driver, get it out there. If you are struggling a lot, it might be better to hit an iron down there. Something, or a hybrid, something to get you a 3-wood, something to get you down there to where you can hit the green in 2. Maybe you'll have a little bit longer of a shot, but it's better than being, out of bounds or something like that. So it really just depends on how you're hitting it that day. That's what I'd recommend. So William S. says, the start of the downswing when lead arm compresses against the chest, it seems like make the hand club move out instead of down. So your club is not gonna move when you come down. It is going to be moving out as well. It's moving out and down. So if you watch, my hands are kind of moving like that. Your hands don't move like that. They don't move straight down. They're moving kind of out and toward you. As you can see, my arm is staying against my chest as I'm coming down. As you can see that it's moving out and down. My club is not going to go like that. If you do that, as you can see there, I kind of went steep. And when I do that, I'm going to do that at the end. So you want to have your hand kind of moving toward the ball a little bit as you're coming down. Now you don't want to overdo it. You don't want it going like that. That if you're going like this, then that means that you're standing up out of your posture at the top. Your shoulders are level. So you want to, if you're staying in your posture, then your hands are going to move down as you're going into the ball, down and out. All right. So Joseph C says, I'm 59. My suggested swing speed is 108. Only getting 250 on drives is bad contact or something else. Again, Joseph, it's really hard to say. If your swing speed is 108, tell you what, that's pretty darn good. If you're getting 250 on your drives, it could be poor contact. It could be if you're hitting a slice or a fake. It's basically, as far as contactor is concerned, so center face contact obviously is going to lead to longer drives. If you're swinging 108, you probably should be hitting the ball probably 260, maybe a little bit further, but you're not going to hit every shot perfect, right? Some shots you're going to hit just like any amateur golfer, especially mid handicapper, mid to low handicapper, or even middle handicapper. Your best drives are probably 250. Your worst ones might be 200 or something like that if you don't hit it solid. So it could be hitting it solid. It could be, there's lots of factors that could be going on there, but with 108 club head speed, you should be hitting the ball a little bit further. Typically you get about 2.5 yards for every mile per hour. So if you're looking at in that sense, you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of whatever. I don't know off the top of my head what 2.5 times. Let's see here. 2.5 times 108. So you're looking at 270. So you probably should be hitting it about, and that's overall distance. Should be hitting it about 270. It could be poor contact, not hitting it in the center of the face. It could be a glancing blow or a combination of these things. It could be where you're cutting across it with an open face, or if you have any deviation between your face and your path, that's going to be more of a glancing blow on the golf ball. So what I mean by that is if I were to hammer a nail, right, I would, to transfer as much energy into that nail, I would go straight down into it. I wouldn't go like that, because that's what's happening when you hit a slice, is you're kind of going like that. You're not transferring as much energy to the golf ball. That puts a lot of spin on it, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of factors that could be going on there. Like I said, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but it could be poor contact. You can use some foot powder spray. So that's just something you can get at a department store, spray it on the face, hit about 10 shots, see where you're striking on the club face. If it's like all over the toe or all over the heel or something like that, then there's a good possibility that that's why. If you're looking at your ball flight and you're seeing lots of slices or lots of hooks, really, really low drives, super high drives, or things like that, it could be the way that you're coming into the golf ball that's costing you to lose distance as well. So it's hard to say without seeing exactly what's going on there, but those are good ideas that could be going on. So it's right at 10 a.m. right now. Joseph on the waiting list. All right, cool. So yeah, be on the lookout in your email. You should have an opportunity to sign up here soon. But thanks for joining me, everybody. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. Have your questions ready. You can start pushing your questions up to an hour before. So since we start at 9 a.m. Eastern, you can start pushing your questions at 8 a.m. And I'll be there to answer them at 9 a.m., starting at 9 a.m. So thanks, everybody, for joining me, and I will talk to you next time.